Hey everyone, it's time for another live look at the astrology. My name is Katie Sweetman, and this is Empowering Astrology for the week of April 18th through 24th, 2022. So, as I record this, we are reaching the end of Aries season. It's hard to believe that our fresh new beginnings are about 4 weeks ago. Sorry, here comes my dog. Must know it's time for the astrology. But what I was saying was that we're coming to the end of Aries season, which means that we are taking the new beginnings and the spark of new life that began at the start of Aries season, and now it's time to bring it into Taurus. We're going from the sign of fire to the sign of earth, and earth is the vessel for all of this motivation and passion and new beginnings that we have at the start of each. My dog's being extra restless today. But anyway, there he goes. Anyway, so if you're watching live, I know today's a cameo from Miguel's Tale, but if you're watching live, do say hello. Tell me where you're watching from, even if you're not watching live. And on the replay, it's always fun to see where everybody is watching from. And if you don't know who I am, my name again is Katie Sweetman. I'm an astrologer and psychic medium here in the New York City area. And every week we gather live to talk about the astrology and how the astrology is 50%, but we are the other 50%. So how do we show up? How do we work with this energy? How do we get it to open up to our highest potential? Because astrology is energy. It's the energy of time, metaphorical time. Oh my God, Miguel's gonna get fired from the show. Yeah, we're just gonna keep going. But so astrology is time, it's metaphorical time, it's how we live time, and how do we live the energy of time through each of the 12 zodiac signs. So Aries season is a time of new beginnings. Taurus season, which begins this week, means it's time to slow down. It's time to get back to basics. It's time to think about, well, what do we need in order to feel safe and secure. And since we are coming up to eclipse season, when the sun goes into Taurus on the end of April 19th, so tomorrow, Tuesday, April 19th, we're really going to start to feel this momentum and build and pivot. But of course, more about that in a moment. So last week we had a full moon. It felt like a pretty intense full moon. I don't know what your experiences were, but how did you feel last week's full moon? But that said, something that maybe you heard me talk about last week was an event that I was involved in. In a way, I still am involved in it. It's something called Quantum Imagination. The link is in the show notes. Well, the series launched today, and I was very fortunate to be invited to be a part of a Facebook Live. You can get my talk, which I shared with a couple of other folks, by signing up for the free event, which is Quantum Imagination. My host was somebody named Devorah Spilman. Again, all of that's in the show notes. We had a really interesting conversation. And I talked about in another video that I did with her, something called Quantum Astrology, which really is at the heart of what I do. It's working with energy, it's working with consciousness, it's working with intention, and how do we use astrology as a tool to open up to our highest potential. Also, speaking of eclipse season, just a couple of housekeeping notes. I'm doing 2 events next week and into the weekend. The first is a webinar on the upcoming eclipses. You may or may not know this, but every eclipse season I do a webinar. It's a bit of a deep dive in what to expect in the coming days and weeks around the eclipses. Eclipses, they are major points of transition that happen like clockwork every 6 months, so fairly predictable here. And so many things are cutting out for people. I don't know. But let me know how you're getting the audio. I guess we're really starting to feel the eclipse season early. Like Miguel's on the couch, he's like digging, he's restless. Maybe you too are restless. But what I was saying is that I'm doing an eclipse webinar on April 28th at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can also learn about that in the show notes. All my events are always, you can get the replay. So even if you can't join live, you can watch the replay video. And then I'm going to do a Taurus new moon circle on April 30th, the day of the eclipse, where we sort of work with the energies of Taurus. We open up to the archetypes, and then we think about how do we show up with the energies of Taurus in our life. And you may be thinking, well, I'm not a Taurus, Katie, but you have Taurus somewhere in your astrology, which is actually something we're going to go through when we go through the 12 signs. Where is Taurus in your astrology? Because that is the part of your life that needs grounding, it needs stability, it needs security. And maybe that part of your life over the past few years, you haven't had that, or there's been a lot of changes, or you've had to really connect and interact differently with the energies of Taurus. Maybe historically you've been very disconnected from the energies of pleasure and touch and smell and sensuality, stability, security, trust. These are all Taurus archetypes, which again we'll talk about in a moment. We talk about Taurus season and how, what are your intentions for this full moon, or rather this new moon. But that's all in the show notes. So let's talk about the astrology of this week, April 18th through 24th, 2022. So as I said a few moments ago, we are wrapping up Aries season. So today, was it April 18th, Monday, April 18th, the sun, it's nearing the end of Aries. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It sort of aligns with the start of spring here. In the Northern Hemisphere, it talks about fresh starts, new beginnings. We had a little bit of a change in Aries season last Thursday when Mars, the ruler of Aries season, went into Pisces. By the way, there's 4 planets in Pisces right now. That's a lot of planets in Pisces. So we've got this sort of dreamy thing happening. Things aren't fully formed. Pisces, as the last sign of the zodiac, is that interstitial place between a beginning and an ending. It's sort of the pause. It's that time when we have to go within and reflect. So things aren't completely concrete, perhaps, right now. And even Mars, when it's in Pisces, likes to rest, recuperate, get its bearings before Mars prepares to go into Aries. This will be at the end of May. Got some time. There we go. Got a little cameo in the background. That's my dog. Anyway, yeah, so Mars is in Pisces, but that said, as the sun is rounding out its time in Aries, it makes something called a square to Pluto. Maybe that's why it's all this sort of crazy energy right now. Say hi to my dog, Miguel. Yeah, see, we were talking about you, totally talking about you. But anyway, the sun squares Pluto today. And, it's interesting because Pluto is almost to the end of Capricorn. It's hard to believe that after 14 years, Pluto is going to be in Aquarius this time next year. It's really crazy. Think about it. It's been 14, 15, 16 years in the making. But Pluto talks about the necessary work of growth and evolution, and the sometimes not so pretty work of growth and evolution. So here's the sun. The sun is the source of light in astrology. It creates passion, it motivates, it inspires. It's about the self and the self-expression and creativity, if I didn't say that already. But square Pluto, what's in the way? What are we not looking at? What's the dark heart of something? I mean, I'm saying this as a Scorpio, and maybe there's some sort of intense passions, desires that are coming up. Maybe we're more aware of our self-destructive tendencies. Maybe we're even more aware of what we have to do in order to make a change. So we sort of starting this week off with a little bit of an intense note astrologically. So if something's coming up for you today, or maybe even something coming up for you this past weekend, it might have deeper roots. I mean, it's that argument's not really about what you think it is, or that those emotions are not really about what you think they are. They're about something deeper, for example. But Pluto helps us to make the necessary transformation and reformation in order for there to be an opening, or to take a shadow and to turn it into light, for example. Also today, although this is past, Mercury squared Uranus, and Mercury is in, no, Mercury conjunct Uranus in Taurus. So we're having flashes of insights, maybe information or ideas that might shock or challenge. So yeah, it's a little bit of an intense start to the week, but then the sun goes into Taurus on April 19th, Tuesday, April 19th. So we're moving out of Aries season. Aries is the spark of life. Taurus, earth sign, brings us back to physical reality. Taurus is the first earth sign. It teaches us that on a very basic level, what do we need? Well, we need a roof over our head, we need food in the kitchen, we need money in the bank, at least in this world we do. And what do we need both on a basic level, but also on a larger level? What do we need in order to feel safe, secure, comfortable, grounded? If you know a Taurus, they typically are always thinking of strategizing towards their future. They're looking at investments, money, and of course every Taurus is different. They have different monetary values, but typically Tauruses like to enjoy and sometimes indulge in earthly pleasures, food, comfort, sex. Taurus is definitely a very sexual sign. But here we are, coming into this season, at least from a Northern Hemisphere perspective. The earth has returned back to life. Things are fertile. There are blossoms on the trees. There's flowers. And this is really at the heart of Taurus. I always think of the Empress card in tarot. I'm not a tarot expert, but I always think of the Empress card when I think of Taurus, because such a very sensual, pregnant sign. So really, as we sort of take that spark and those desires and that motivation of Aries season, and what is it going to bring into manifestation? That's really what Taurus is. It's a sign of matter and manifestation at its most rudimentary levels. So it's a bit of a tone shift. But that said, it's pointing us back to all these planets and Pisces, and Venus as the ruler of Taurus season. It's exalted. And Pisces, Pisces talks about, in its highest form, of course, this idea of unconditional love, of peace, to see the beauty in everything. It's sort of transcendent and even ethereal. But, of course, there's another side of Pisces. It's sort of the disillusionment. It's the loss. It's the feeling ungrounded and not where to go, and sometimes even caught in illusions. So we do have that duality, of course. We always have that duality. So Taurus is somewhere in your astrology, and maybe you are a Taurus, and so happy birthday, Taurus. And as I said earlier, now that when the sun goes into Taurus on April 19th, we're starting eclipse season. To be fair, we've already been feeling eclipse season. Maybe it's the weird energy right now is because the moon is presently in Scorpio, and it's pretty much right on the south node of the moon. It's kind of a funky place for the moon to be, if I'm going to be completely honest. The south node of the moon is sort of this very complicated, emotional, psychic, unconscious well that when we sort of pass through its energies, emotions and feelings and sensations and memories can come out that maybe need to come out, but they can be a little bit messy. So that may a little kind of insight to today, maybe some of the stranger energies of today and the restlessness of today. But, of course we are feeling restless. We're going to have an eclipse in a week and a half. We're going to have a solar eclipse in Taurus at 10 degrees on April 30th. So this is going to be the first of two eclipses. There's going to be a lunar eclipse in Scorpio. That's another thing. Pay attention to what's been happening today, maybe even the things that have been happening yesterday. The moon was also in Scorpio, because the next time the moon's in Scorpio, we're going to have a lunar eclipse. This is on May 16th at 26 degrees. Think about it for a second. 26 degrees of Scorpio. or 25, but yeah, 26. So this is a time when we're getting a little bit of a preview of these upcoming eclipses in terms of its themes. And if Taurus reminds us to come back to life, then Scorpio also reminds us that all things must end. I mean, I'm a Scorpio. Maybe you don't know this, but I love Taurus season. I think that it takes some of the intensities off of Scorpio. Scorpio's instinct is just to burn everything down. Why not? Everything, this isn't working. Let's just burn everything down. And then Taurus is like, hang on, Scorpio, you don't have to burn everything down. Maybe just have a snack and enjoy life. And here's some cake. Because Taurus is ruled by Venus. Venus is sweets and sweetness. So there is that duality of life, and I think that duality isn't more stark than in Taurus and Scorpio. We have everything in Taurus, but then sometimes in Scorpio we have nothing. It's time to let it go. And so that sort of back and forth that happens between the two signs. So I think that as we go into these eclipses, especially the lunar eclipse in Scorpio in May, I'm getting ahead of myself, we have to see what's in the way. What's at the dark heart of why we have a hard time trusting, or why do we have a hard time relaxing and letting go and feeling like everything is going to be okay. That's something that Taurus, its deep instincts is trying to create for us. So yes, pay attention to what's happening, because we're starting to get into these eclipse energies, and even though they may be a week or 2 weeks or however many weeks off, they were present with us even earlier this month, for example. And if you are a Taurus or a Scorpio or a Leo or an Aquarius, somebody asked me on Instagram today, why those 4 signs? Well, these are what are called fixed signs, and that's where the energy is really concentrated in the astrology this year, especially the energy of change. So these are the 4 signs that are really feeling this push and pull and this call for change this year. So if you are that, really pay attention to these eclipses. Here's the other thing, and I'm going to talk about this more, shameless plug, in my eclipse webinar on April 28th. These eclipses, they galvanize a story that was set in motion way back in May 2018 and March of 2019. Those were the 2 dates that Uranus went into Taurus. Uranus hadn't been in Taurus since the late 1930s and early 1940s. So that's something that doesn't happen very often. Uranus as an outer planet, meaning as an evolutionary planet, its job is to get us to grow and evolve by any means possible. And it's doing its work through the sign of Taurus: money, stability, food, security, trust, pleasure, your relationship with your body, you inhabiting your body. So for some of you, and I've even said this to clients, like you can look back at May, June, or even March, April of 2019, May, June 2018, and really see some big pivot points where all of this starts to come up to a head. And it's not to say that change is for change's sake, or even chaos, or even something negative, but it's my belief that Uranus is this planet of radical authenticity. And maybe you were stuck all the way up till 2018, 2019, or even 2020, and Uranus has been trying to get you unstuck and get you to connect with your highest potential. We all have some highest potential, and to begin to make some changes to get closer to who we really are. That's sort of the push and the jolt of Uranus as an energy and as an archetype, is that it can really push us out of something that we thought was so stable and secure, but maybe it wasn't truly in the end. Yeah, my puppy's in the background. He decided to take a nap while we're doing this. So we are really going to feel some very interesting energies as we go into eclipse season. If you're kind of nervous, don't be nervous, but how do you use this energy? If you know that this energy is trying to get you unstuck, or trying to get you out of your own way, or it doesn't want you to be something that you're not, maybe you're using that in a proactive and productive way. But eclipses are eclipses. They sort of have minds of their own often. And go back and look at, because eclipses have half cycles of 9 years, like what was going on in your life in 2013. That was the last time we had eclipses in Taurus and Scorpio. What was going on in 2003? That was the last time the eclipses were at around this degree. So a little bit of some food for thought. That's Taurus season. That's eclipse season. Later this week, speaking of eclipses, Mercury in Taurus meets up with the North Node in Taurus. So when a planet connects to the nodes, the lunar nodes, these 2 points in the sky, always exactly opposite from one another, they are like the compass points, these kind of collective spiritual compass points for everybody. So on a metaphorical level, we are all moving collectively towards the archetype of Scorpio. But on the other hand, we have to face stuff in whatever the archetype or relationship with the archetype of Scorpio. That's where the lunar nodes are right now. But the lunar nodes on an astronomical level make eclipses happen. The lunar nodes went into Taurus and Scorpio back on January 19th of this year. So this has been a recent tone shift for everybody collectively, but also a shift in your own astrology. And January sort of bridged us from 2021 and that lunar eclipse in Taurus that we had in November 19th of 2021. And then here we are. And Uranus is really demanding some sort of new beginning, something that really breaks us out of the past. Well, here comes Mercury in Taurus, makes a conjunction to the nodes. Right around the same time, it's squaring Saturn. So we have to make some decisions over the next few days and even into this weekend. Saturn is a very cut and dry planet. It's either a yes or a no. It's either this is working or it's not working. It's in balance or it's not in balance. So you may have to look at a situation or make a serious decision, but whatever choice you're making may have wider ranging impact because it's on the lunar nodes. Maybe you are choosing to whatever situation you need in order to plant yourself someplace, in order to feel the earth, in order to feel safe and secure, to have a different relationship with sensuality or money or your body. These are all some Taurus archetype examples. But we may have to, look on the other side of the polarity with the South Node in Scorpio. Well, what are we not wanting to look at? What's sort of underneath a situation that we're navigating right now? This all prepares us for next week and the Taurus solar eclipse at 10 degrees of Taurus. So that is your astrology for this week. Of course, we're going to look at the astrology of each of the individual signs and focusing on where is Taurus in your astrology? Where is this one area of your chart? Everybody has a natal chart that's really seen a lot of change, or has seen a lot of change since 2018, 2019, and then where you may have a pivot point in 2022 and even in 2023. So, of course, you can listen for your sun sign and also for your rising sign, if you know your rising sign. And I always get asked that, do you guys hear the wind? This is when I'm 30 stories up, so it gets a little bit windy this high up. But anyway, it's crazy. You can hear that. Funny that the mic's picking that up. But anyway, howling wind. Anyway. And also, what I was about to say, how do you know your rising sign? You need your exact birth time. So that's how that's calculated. Easily, when you have that information, you can look at it up on the internet for free. So let's look at the astrology of the 12 signs for the week of April 18th through 24th, howling wind and all, of 2022. So Aries, so Taurus is what's called your second sign. And the second sign of your astrology talks about money and income and material stability. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the comments. I'm like, close the door next time. Material stability and material security. So for you, when the sun goes into Taurus Aries, it's time to really get back to basics, to get back to nuts and bolts, to look at your material needs, finance, money, spending. But this is an area that you've been seeing some big changes over the past 3 years. And maybe you have a very different relationship with money than you did a few years ago, or maybe you earn a living differently than a few years ago, or maybe your sense of self-worth is in value is very different than it was a few years ago. But this is a time for you on some level, the best that you can right now, Aries, to settle in. You know, we all have to sort of find our feet underneath the ground. And I will add, Aries, this is kind of an aside from the comments about Taurus. Your planet Mars, it's in Pisces. It's not going to leave Pisces until the end of May. So what is that, like 5 weeks from now? So speaking, I think I said, settling down, but on some level, this is a time about you getting still, going within, resting, recuperating, not pushing too hard. Maybe this is part of a time in your life, Aries, where things have to get back into balance. Maybe asking yourself, what do you really value? That's the thing. Sometimes we think something is of true value or it's a value for the future, but it's not really. Sometimes we put a lot of energy into something, but we need to make sure there's balance, that it's not, we're not getting burnt out, for example. So if you're a little bit burnt out right now, Aries, use this time to recalibrate, to relook at what really matters, what do you want to put your time and energy on, and what do you need to spend your money on. Howling wind. Taurus. So happy birthday, Taurus. Your season begins on Tuesday, April 19th, at least here on the East Coast of the United States. And your season means that it's time for you to sort of come back to this new beginning in your personal astrology. So Aries season for you was a time to reflect, to go in, to divest yourself of the past and to prepare for a new beginning. So here's the thing, and I was sort of saying this, and it applies to you when I was talking about Taurus season. You have Uranus in Taurus. Uranus has been in Taurus since May 2018, March 2019. And so this has been a time where you Taurus, the sign that typically doesn't like to make a lot of changes, it's change resistant, has to make radical changes. And these are changes that may seem scary, Taurus, but these are changes that on some deep level need to happen. And it's not that you can't recreate stability and security for yourself. I think that's a little bit of where some of the Tauruses get a little stuck right now, is that they think that if they say yes or say no, or if they make that change, that suddenly everything's chaos. Well, I personally have full faith in Taurus to figure out where they need to kind of create some new land, some new property. And I mean that metaphorically. I don't know, maybe that's literal for you, because it's a sign that's so motivated to create solid ground that you may just have to do that someplace very different than you have been residing, metaphorically or literally, over the past however many years, if not your whole life. So this is big deal astrology for you, Taurus. This is the kind of thing that you're not going to experience probably again in your life. Certainly, you'd have to live another 84 years for you to have Taurus again in your sign. That's probably not going to happen unless you are an infant who is watching this live, which you maybe you can take a nap with Miguel. But that said, it's a huge time of pivot. And the thing is, Taurus, is that you're probably already feeling this, and maybe those pivots are already happening. They don't need April 30th in order to start these new beginnings. If your birthday is on April 30th, it is a powerful new year for you, Taurus. One where it's quite possible that where you are at, metaphorically, maybe even literally, is not where you're going to be be in the next 6 to 12 months. That's how eclipses work. Venus, your planet, is over in the 11th, so this is so much a time about friends, community, looking ahead towards the future, thinking about how you want to be maybe even of service or a force of good in the world. But there's sort of this new beginnings that really are trying to get you to look ahead towards a future, and maybe even a very different future that you thought you were going to have. Gemini. So Gemini, Taurus is what's called your 12th sign. So the 12th sign is what's hidden. It's something that you can't see. It represents the non-manifested world, your dreams, your intuition, even your spirituality. So a lot of these big changes that I've been alluding to in the beginning of our time together are happening behind the scenes. And maybe this is a deeply existential time for you, Gemini. Maybe this is a time when you're really searching your soul, trying to break free of something, let something go, maybe even get into a different relationship with your spirituality, or even a different relationship with God, Source, Creator, whatever you want to call it. But this is a time of both radical, powerful, transformative endings. I know that word's a little heavy, but that's what the 12th does. It brings us to the end of something. But I think not to sound cheesy, but an ending is just a beginning waiting to happen. So this is a time that's been opening your eyes to the subtle realms, to deeper faiths, deeper spiritualities, and maybe these eclipses, Gemini, are really pivotal in this journey to really rediscover who you truly are. Mercury, your planet, is in a little bit of a tight spot this week, so maybe there's a lot of pressure on you this week to make a break from the past, to make some serious decisions. Your planet Mercury will get into Gemini later this month. It will go retrograde. That's a future conversation for a future time, but it is a bit of a heavy emotional time, spiritual time for Gemini. Really make sure that you're resting and take care of yourself. Cancer. Sorry, howling wind. Cancer. So Taurus is what's called your 11th sign. And you've been seeing a lot of big changes in your social circle over the past few years. And maybe your friends are very different. Maybe your sense of community and connection is very different. But what Uranus is trying to do is actually open you up to something different, whether it is new friends, but on a larger level, your relationship with the collective and the whole. The 11th is a place in your astrology that makes us aware of our connection and our relationship to the greater whole. I mean this on a societal level, on a humanitarian level. It doesn't have the subtleties of the 12th. It's more of the human element. But this is a time where new people want to come into your life. And maybe you've had friends or people in your social circle who are like the archetype of Uranus. They are trying to awaken you. They're trying to turn on the proverbial lights, so to speak. And maybe you see that person in your life. They are a catalyst for you, and hopefully a positive catalyst for you. But what Uranus wants is for you to be absolutely true to yourself. And sometimes it takes somebody coming into your life to show you that you haven't been yourself. And maybe you've had friends that you just sort of fell into and realized that you were stepping away from yourself by being friends with these people. And maybe that's why they've had to leave your life. This is your periodic check-in, Cancer, with Saturn in your 8th. I know it's been a little bit of a heavy emotional time, but I think with all this pressure, it is trying to open you up to new futures, so keep your eyes open. The energy of these eclipses are happening in, pointing towards something called your 9th. So this is a time to really open up what you believe in, these deeper questions of faith and truth and meaning, and to figure out, what do you stand for? Leo. So these are big deal eclipses for you, Leo or Leo rising, because these eclipses are going to happen in your 10th sign of career, your public reputation, your status, your place in the world, your professional life. So Taurus is your career sign. And since May 2018, March 2019, you've been seeing a lot of changes in your professional life, and maybe on some superficial, like, well, now you work from home and you didn't work from home, or maybe you're now self-employed, or maybe you quit that, air quotes, day job to do what you actually love. The thing is Uranus is trying to say to you, whatever you're doing in the world, it better be you. And it's the thing, we often choose careers and we choose responsibilities and places in the world, like roles in the world, because that's what we think that we should be doing. It's what our parents want, it's how we've been socially conditioned or conditioned by our family. And we get to key and sometimes very predictable moments in our life. Age 42, 43 is one of them, where we can no longer be something that we're not. So here comes these eclipses, here comes Taurus season. And so on some level, this is a time when you are this perennial question, what do you want to be when you grow up, Leo? And what do you really want to do? Because you can't keep doing something that takes away from your creativity, takes away from your soul. If you are a burnt out Leo, how do you fix that? Because there's nothing worse than a burnt out Leo. You are here to shine, to be a force of inspiration, creativity, and to express who you truly are. That's the role of Leo. So how does your professional life, there goes my dog, how does your professional life line up with that sort of really fundamental astrology mandate? But this is a pivotal time for you, Leo. Life is getting interesting. There could be a job change, career direction. You could, sort of the seesaw of life with eclipse energy. That's what your star goes up, your star goes down. Hopefully, just up. We don't want anything going down. But there's so much of a spotlight on your professional life right now. With so many planets in Pisces, maybe this is a time that's helping you to dream, to go within, to think about what's truly important, and maybe even to face some complicated emotions. Virgo, Taurus is what's called your 9th sign. So this has been 3 years at this point, almost 4, of really opening up your eyes. So every Virgo is going to live this differently. One Virgo decides to go back to school and maybe do something that's very different. Another Virgo, what they believe in is not what they believed in a few years ago. Maybe there's been a vision shift, maybe there's been a philosophical shift, but this is a place, the 9th is where we sort of have our sense of convictions. We all have to believe in something, and whether we align ourselves with particular philosophies or we sort of have to find that within, this is a time that on some level is trying to get you to question everything and to find meaning in your life. Maybe this is a time of new ideas, new beliefs that shock you, and maybe beliefs that get you to think about things in very different ways. But I think, and I say this with all due respect, Virgo, the thing about having an earth sign on a place in the chart that's typically about fire is that sometimes you can get a little bit in your blinders or get a little bit stuck in what you think is possible and not possible. And sometimes we can become our own worst enemy, and our beliefs can sort of really be a stumbling or a roadblock, for example. So let these eclipses really open up possibilities, because if you catch yourself, Virgo, saying, oh, that can't happen. It can't happen for me, or I'm not allowed to get that, or you're so sure that it has to be a certain way. And I've seen this over and over again, that when we are so sure it can only happen a certain way, it really creates a lot of complicated energy that makes it more difficult for other options to come in. Because here's the thing, our future is not written. It's actually always constantly changing, and while there are things that are more cemented based on our choices or our karma, or collective choices and collective karma, certainly this is a time when you can truly open up the potential for your future reality. I will add, because Mercury is also in Taurus right now, it made up what's called a conjunction to Uranus. It's today, April 18th. And it's really trying to, again, open your eyes, shock you awake, get you to remember exactly who you are. But it's going to meet up with the North Node later this week, and it's going to square Saturn on the 23rd and the 24th of this week. So you may have some serious decisions to make, and Saturn being Saturn, ultimate pragmatist, how do you weigh options? How do you get real? How do you make sure things are fair and equitable, that there's justice? But the decisions that you're making are really setting you up for the future, Virgo. Libra. So Libra, your planet is Venus, and Venus is currently in a group of planets called a stellium in Pisces. So Venus is over in Pisces. It's joined by Neptune, Jupiter, and even Mars. So there's this sort of beautiful, ethereal, dreamy time right now. Pisces for you is what's called your sixth sign. So while everything is beautiful, or maybe that's the idea, and maybe you have a lot of beautiful dreams and visions, like how do you make them reality? How do you take care of yourself? I think that when there's a huge emphasis on the sixth sign in anybody's astrology, we have to really make sure we have time for rituals, that we put meaning into everything that we do, especially Pisces being such a meaning-driven sign. So, if you're feeling a little bit burnt out, Libra, what needs to happen in your day-to-day life, your schedule, the work that you do in order to feed you, to make you feel that you are supported? Do you need more time to meditate? Do you need to change your work? Do you need to focus on health and wellness in your life? Do you need retreat? All these Pisces possibilities. But when I think of physical activity with Pisces, I always think of swimming and dancing. So maybe that's a better solution for you right now. But that said, Taurus for you, Libra, is what's called your eighth sign. So Taurus season is your time in what I affectionately call the eighth room. We all have to go through the eighth room, the eighth sign in our astrology house. By going through the eighth room, we do the necessary work. We have to confront ourselves. We are tested by life. And if that doesn't sound so pleasant, remind yourself that a life that is untested, that a life that is unexamined is a pretty shallow life. So this is the importance of this time, whether the sun is in Taurus, whether there's an eclipse in Taurus, whether there's an outer planet in Taurus. It's trying to get you to do that deeper emotional work, that shadow work. We all have the shadow within that we all have to reveal. And I think, especially with Saturn over in your fifth, this has been a time of really needing to look at your inner saboteur, whether it's imposter syndrome, whether it's self-sabotage, where you sort of, kind of keep pushing something off that you need to do. But this is a time of really getting back to who you truly are by looking at the things that take you away from who you are. So it's a bit of a deeper time, one that speaks to identity, self-expression, but also the inner workings of your psyche, trust, intimacy, vulnerability, and even the hidden stuff that we don't always feel comfortable talking about, only maybe with a trusted, confident or a therapist. But Uranus is trying to awaken you, and maybe even awaken you to a different relationship with sensuality, sexuality, touch, pleasure than what you have historically had. But yes, Libra, so many planets right now in Pisces. Your planet Venus will go into Aries in the beginning of May, so that'll be a shift for you. That'll be about relationships. But in the meantime, do the work, do the holistic work, mind, body, and soul, to prepare you for whatever that next chapter of your life is. Scorpio. Scorpio, you are a fixed sign, and boy oh boy, there's a lot of things happening in the fixed signs right now. So, Scorpio, you're about 3 weeks out from a lunar eclipse in your sign that's going to put you in the spotlight. So maybe you're feeling the buildup of energy, but of course you do, Scorpio. You're a sign that has a sort of the finger on the pulse, so to speak. But Taurus is your relationship sign, and maybe you've heard me say this sort of every other week or so. Uranus is in Taurus, and Taurus is this sign that is trying to open you up to new people, new relationships. It doesn't have to necessarily be romantic relationships, but Scorpio, you are a sign that by your nature, you're very motivated by trust. Who do I trust? Can I trust? Can I trust you? Are you a bad person? But Taurus is, it's like, how do you have a very different relationship with relationships? And this is something that's been in the works since 2018, 2019, when Uranus first arrived. Maybe you are in a marriage and then you're not in that marriage anymore. Maybe you're not in that relationship anymore. Or maybe you were single for 10 years and now here comes somebody into your life who is radically different than before. And that's the whole point, is that whomever is in your life, whether they are an intimate partner or a friend or a connection, they have to really, there has to be some sense of radical authenticity, meaning that you have to be you 100%. In order for that to happen, you have to actually let people in. Just a thought. So these eclipses are really going to put the spotlight on you, but also relationship. People are coming in, people are coming out. It's time for serious relationship. It's time to recalibrate existing relationships, but all based on this need for you to trust, open up, and to connect with people on a very different level. With so many planets in Pisces, which is your fifth sign, Mars and Venus, the ruler of these eclipses, are two of these planets. It's so much about the self and romance and learning to have fun, learning to make priority of passion, creativity, and really knowing exactly who you are. So have fun, even as it feels like life is lurching and pivoting. Certainly it's a big time. Saturn's still down in your fourth. It's still about family and home as well. But we're going to have more to talk about as we get into the next couple of weeks, Scorpio. Sagittarius, Taurus is what's called your sixth sign. So I want you to think back to about 2018 or 2019. Do you see any changes with your health or your body, your relationship with your body, or your relationship with your day-to-day life? Maybe your work is different. Maybe your sense of daily schedule is different. But the idea is that Uranus went into this part of your chart, and it's possible that nothing looks the same. So if you were, being silly, like if you were working in a cubicle, maybe you're working at home, or you have a very different work environment than you did a few years ago, pandemic notwithstanding. So this is a time of radical authenticity, but that radical authenticity is about you and your relationship with your body, and or you in your relationship with your day-to-day life. Everything has to change. Then again, it already has been changing. So maybe the most crazy thing you can do right now is go to the gym or go for a walk or change your diet. And this is not to do it because you want to. It's because whatever it is, it's because it's what your body wants. And maybe that's the real radical thing, is to think that maybe your body has wants and needs. But on some level, if you've been sort of disconnected from your body or even disconnected from pleasure, Taurus is such a sensual sign, then it's a very different, hopefully, a very different place right now than you were back in 2018, 2019. On a very traditional astrology viewpoint, this will be an eclipse in your sixth. This is the part of the chart that talks about health and wellness. Take care of your health. Do not put anything off. If there's a checkup that needs to be happening, of course, I'm not a doctor, make that checkup, because these eclipses on some level are saying that health and wellness are a focus of this time. It doesn't have to be negative, but it doesn't mean it probably needs some proactive measures. If there are health matters that have been on the back burner, including making positive and lasting changes, then be proactive with these eclipses and use it to make positive, proactive, lasting changes. Capricorn. So Capricorn, got a lot going on right now. Taurus is what's called your fifth sign. And the fifth sign in anybody's astrology talks about self. It talks about who are you at your core. There is a rudimentary self at the level of Capricorn, your sun in Capricorn, or even if you have Capricorn rising. But it gets more complicated than that. And that's where the fifth comes in. The fifth talks about what makes you different than other people, what makes you a different Capricorn than all billion Capricorns out there. So how do you get back to what is you? And that's the thing about Capricorn, is that it's often a sign that's very duty conscious, very work conscious, and it does a lot of things because it thinks it has to, but then that takes away from joy, passion. I mean, these things may sound like luxuries to a Capricorn, but they are a necessity to life. This is the thing, Capricorn, you are what's called an earth sign, but the signs that come before earth are fire. It is a reminder that we need passion, we need the spark, we need life before we do the heavy lifting. So Capricorn, if you are burnt out, use this eclipse energy to get you back to you. I will say that all this energy of Taurus season is pointing over to what's called the third. So this is a time to make different choices, to make choices that are actually going to support your life as opposed to working against your life. I will say Capricorn, at least for today with the Sun square Pluto, it's some pretty heavy, intense energy. You're really getting that psychic pressure to transform and reform today. But these eclipses that are coming up will be so much about the self, and then how does that self connect to the greater whole, whether it's community and friendship, but also society, humanity, and the collective. And do not forget, Capricorn, that your planet Saturn is not done with Uranus. They're still in a square, even though those 3 squares were in 2021. You're getting such a pressure to be the real you as opposed to the you that you thought you were. Aquarius, you are a fixed sign, and there are lots happening right now in the fixed sign. So Taurus season, the sun goes into what's called your fourth. The fourth is the base of the chart, the base of your astrology. It's home, it's family, it's roots, it's what supports everything. It's one of the most important signs in your astrology. It's one of the 4 pillars of your astrology. So here comes the Taurus sun, and it's saying on a very superficial level, it's time to get back to what is in your heart, what your family, your home, spend time at home, to spend time with people who are like family, if your own family is a little bit more complicated. But the sun in Taurus is a time to refresh your home, spring cleaning, make a move, and certainly as you prepare for a solar eclipse in a week and a half, this is a time of really powerful new beginnings in your home environment. These were new beginnings that were already set in motion at the end of last year with that eclipse in Taurus on November 19th. So maybe you need to make some radical changes, Taurus. I will say that Uranus, speaking of radical, has been in this sign since 2018, 2019. I've known a lot of Aquariuses that have made cross-country moves or have made some sort of major change in their household. Suddenly they've got kids, or they didn't have kids before, or maybe they've made a huge break with their family. But nevertheless, at the heart of these eclipses, at the heart of Taurus season, is for you to get back to what's actually going to support and nourish and feed you. And if you are so disconnected from that, and sometimes, Aquarius, you can get really in your head about things, how do you get back into your body? How do you get back to the roots and to the structure and to what really is going to feed and support your life? I mean, your planet Saturn, that said, is still in a square with Uranus. This is still a pivotal year of transformations, awakenings, and in some cases going off in very new directions. Pisces. So Taurus is your third sign. So go back and, maybe this is not as dramatic as compared to some of the other signs, but go back and think about 2018, 2019, and where were you then versus where you are now? So this part of the chart talks about choice, weighing your options, having hopefully the deeper intuition to know what is a good choice for you and maybe what is not a good choice for you. But on a more mundane level, it's about your relationship with your voice, how you communicate, whether it is literally the words out of your mouth or the energy that is behind those words, because you want to know who you truly are. Well, first, who you truly are lies within. It's in your heart, as cheesy as that sounds. But who you truly are is the energy that you put into your words. It's how I know who you are versus somebody else. And that's when you may be, somebody may question, well, this isn't who you really are. This is not your voice, somebody else's voice. Well, how do you get back to your voice? And maybe even having a very different relationship with your voice. All the energy of Taurus season, at least for the next week, but certainly we go into the eclipse next week, it's going to point over to Pisces. Hey, you're a Pisces. So this is some sort of new beginning, a new beginning where you are weighing your options, weighing your choices, new beginnings that are setting you up for the future. Could be something about communication, writing, speaking, education, and even siblings, because this part of the chart does also talk about siblings. But the thing, Pisces, and I think I said this last week, maybe even weeks before that, you're sort of in this weird space where you're both straddling a new life, but at the same time you've got one foot in an old life, because Saturn is still in Aquarius. You're sort of still wrapping up an old chapter, and in many cases a 30-year chapter, and preparing for the new life. So maybe these eclipses are really giving you the vision to think about the choices that you need to make for this next big chapter of your life, because Saturn will go into Pisces in March 2023, and that's going to be a time of major new beginnings for you. So there you go, Pisces. I will say Mercury, which is a big player in your astrology, is making some moves this week between Saturn, between Uranus, between the nodes. So look at relationships, look at the choices that you're making around relationships, your interactions with people, and even what's going on in your home environment and where you are living, and maybe even the changes that you want to make in your home environment. So yeah, there you go. That's the astrology of April 18th through 24th, 2022. I laugh because didn't know you all could hear the howling wind outside. This it's probably not even that windy, but I think there's a leak in the seal of the window, so it just always sounds a bit dramatic. But hey, we're a week and a half from a solar eclipse, so maybe we need some dramatic sound effects. But there you go. Like I said at the beginning of our time together, I'm doing a couple of events coming up. I'm doing an eclipse webinar on April 28th at 8 p.m. Eastern. It's about 90 minutes. Usually it goes over 90 minutes, where it's a big deep dive into this eclipse season, what it means for you, these sort of bigger points. And then I'm going to do my new moon circle. We did one last month for the Aries new moon. I'm going to do my new moon circle on April 30th, Saturday at 12 p.m. Both of these events, you can get the replay. Also, you can still get the free event, the Quantum Imagination series that I was invited to speak on, talking about quantum astrology with Devorah Spilman. And yeah. There you go. Next week we will be talking eclipses. There you go. That's your look at the astrology of April 18th through 24th, 2022. My name is Katie Sweetman. This has been Empowering Astrology, and I will see you all next week. We won't have the howling wind. Take care. Bye.